Hello, hello, and hello. I am the S.O.C.K, aka the Dung Beetle of New Hampshire, and I'm back at it with the 7th episode of Dude Brew. This is gonna be a special one. I'm pretty excited to showcase this, and I know I say I'm excited to showcase stuff literally every single time I do a Dude Brew episode, but I extra mean it this time. So I'm sure it's been done before, and list a creature below in the comments if you know about one. Anybody that's more educated in D&D lore, but I don't remember ever seeing a D&D creature that's like a multi-stage creature, like a creature that has multiple different ones show up before the main course arrives, like before multiple creatures and stuff. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the type of creature I'll be covering today, or technically 3 creatures. We're going to do a deep dive on the Storm Cycle, which is basically an ancient Feywild event started by a being known as the Stormsinger. And this Storm Cycle actually consists of 3 creatures in total, like I was saying. So grab some snacks and stuff, because we're going to go over all 3 creatures and how they operate as a whole. And there's going to be timestamps in the video for if you want to skip to specific parts. But without further ado, let's get into what the Storm Cycle is. It's common knowledge among sages that the Feywild operates as a reflection of the material plane, but the reflection is more like the reflection in one of those circus mirrors, all distorted and stuff. The Feywild is a realm of raw emotion and a primal connection to nature, but within this chaotic plane are various forces that maintain a quote-unquote structure of sorts. These consist of the Seelie and Unseelie courts, the Archfey, and sometimes events occur in response to these types of beings doing stuff. And one such event is called the Storm Cycle. So, the Storm Cycle is basically what happens when the attention of a Stormsinger is drawn by an impending ecological disaster. It could be drastic overhunting of animals resulting in, the extinction of multiple species, or one really important one, mass scale deforestation, or whatever sort of action damages the environment, or whatever mystical grove that the Feywild cares about for whatever reason. Regardless, once the Stormsinger begins the Storm Cycle in the area of the crime, experienced druids, rangers, and those connected to nature start hearing its ominous song on the wind. As a part of the Storm Cycle, the Stormsinger sends 2 warnings in the form of 2 separate creatures. The rain started about a week ago. It wasn't that bad at first, but it never stopped. It's starting to fire? I wish. Nothing would burn. Flint, dry wood, even the lanterns flickered out. And then that thing showed up. I thought it was a child or something at first. This koala-looking thing, wearing some hoity-toity noble clothes. It was standing there in the road like it was waiting for us. Something was off about it, though. His fur was white as snow, and it almost glowed somehow. Said we were harming something sacred, told us we still had time to make things right. We told it to piss off, but it kept coming back. Every night, every damn morning. And every time it left, the air felt heavier. The others laughed it off until one day Jordan tried to punch it. Didn't even see it move. One blink and he was on the ground, smoking, twitching, muttering some nonsense about voices in the static. The creature didn't even look at him. Just turned to me and said, "The second warning is near. You should leave." I didn't listen. None of us did. Now I can't sleep. I can't eat. And I swear, I can hear drums in the rain. So we'll go over the first of these 2 warnings, which is a creature known as a Storm Herald. We're going to get into what a Storm Herald is. So getting into what a Storm Herald actually is, the Storm Heralds are emissaries of nature's wrath, sent forth by the Stormsinger whenever the balance of the natural world is disrupted. Their arrival is a sign that the world is in grave danger. Their purpose is not to punish, but to warn those whose actions threaten the land. They are well-spoken, calm, and generally peaceful in their dealings. They approach those who have caused harm to nature with an unnerving politeness, seeking to remind them of the beauty they've endangered. A Storm Herald stands at around 4.5 feet tall. His body is a blend of humanoid shape and the head of a koala bear. Its fur is platinum white with sky blue tips, especially around the ears, giving it an otherworldly glow. Its round, expressive eyes convey both wisdom and sorrow. The herald's clothing is that of an elegant nobleman, adorned in fine clothes that are worn from the age and travel. Faint sparks can sometimes be seen from its fur. The Storm Herald is not immune to annoyance. It frequently makes backhanded remarks if it's insulted. Despite this, they are generally cordial and understanding. Storm Heralds often use illusions to demonstrate the potential consequences of the offender's continued actions. They show images of dying forests, polluted rivers, or destroyed landscapes. Sometimes they show visions of the destruction that the Stormsinger will bring if the warnings go unheeded. The Herald is persistent but not impatient. Though the Storm Herald seeks peaceful solutions, it's far from defenseless. Should it be attacked or directly threatened, the Herald is capable of using its otherworldly speed and magic to defend itself, but always with the goal of escaping to carry the message somewhere else. Still, those who attack the Herald may find themselves suffering shocking consequences, no pun intended. It has fur that generates electricity and unparalleled reflexes, which can easily turn a simple confrontation into a painful ordeal. If the offending party refuses to heed its warnings, it will return again and again, offering them the opportunity to make things right. However, if they continue to defy the warnings, it is said that the Herald will ultimately bring the matter before the Stormsinger for judgment. After this, the second warning manifests. So essentially the Storm Herald is just like if Pikachu was the Lorax. So yeah, you don't want to try to punch the Lorax, because you're going to end up getting hit with the electricity of a taser essentially. But yeah, no, these things aren't really, barbarians are going to fight you and stuff unless you directly attack it and everything. It'll defend itself. But even then, it's just defending itself to leave. This thing's whole goal is to show up and let you know exactly what you're doing wrong and what's going to happen as a result. Like, these things are the diplomats of nature, essentially. So it's the Stormsinger trying to give you a chance to kind of reconcile for what you've done before. But if you choose not to, then the Storm Herald eventually is going to leave and start the second stage. And before we get into the second stage, though, we're going to get into the combat abilities for the Storm Herald. So you're going to see it on the screen right here, but there's going to be a link below, obviously, with the document for the Storm Cycle and everything and all the different creatures. But shout out to DM Dungeon Mastery, because he convinced me that I should probably make these things into actual official 5e like formatted stat blocks and everything. So if you want to actually use the stat block during the game and stuff, I figured it would be easier if you can just screenshot this on the screen right here. And it's going to be in the document, like I said before. But yeah, no, so getting into the actual abilities of the Storm Herald, it's a small Fae, lawful good. It has an AC of 15 with hit points of 28, and that's a roll of 5d6 plus 10 for the calculation. It has a 40-foot walking speed, and for its stats, it has 9 strength, 20 dexterity, 14 constitution, 12 intelligence, 18 wisdom, and 16 charisma. These are more mentally inclined creatures, and it's trying to dodge and move out of the way with its nimble sort of lightning speed. For its saving throws, it has proficiency in dexterity, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, with a +8 to dexterity saving throws, a +7 to wisdom saving throws, and a +6 to charisma saving throws. It has expertise and insight, giving it a +10 bonus. It has +7 to perception, and then +8 to stealth. It has immunity to lightning damage, and it has a passive perception of 17. It also speaks Common and Sylvan. For its traits, this first trait is called Lightning Quick Reflexes. The Storm Herald has advantage on dexterity saving throws. In addition, attack rolls against it are made with disadvantage unless it is prone, grappled, or restrained. Next up is Static Fur. Whenever the Storm Herald moves at least 10 feet during its turn, it builds up static electricity. For every 10 feet moved, its next attack and or damage roll gains a +1 bonus and deals an additional 1d4 lightning damage. So that's a maximum of +3 to the attack and damage roll and +3d4 lightning. So if this thing moves its full movement speed, you can kind of picture that it's like, maybe not rubbing its feet against the ground, but it's just friction building up because of its static fur and everything. So it starts sparking and stuff like that, and having like, these electric sort of bolts coming off of it before it touches you and stuff. You kind of flavor effect is that. Next up is Evasive. The Storm Herald takes no damage on a successful dexterity saving throw and half damage on a failure. After that, it's Shocking Body. Once per turn, whenever a creature touches the Storm Herald or hits it with a melee attack on their turn, the triggering creature takes 3d4 lightning damage. Next up is Fleet-Footed. Whenever a creature misses the Storm Herald with an attack roll, it can move 10 feet without provoking attacks of opportunity. And it also has innate spell casting with a spell save DC of 15 and a +7 to hit with its spell attacks. It uses its wisdom for its spell casting ability. And the following spells it can cast: at will, it can cast Shocking Grasp, Druidcraft, Calm Emotions, Hallucinatory Terrain, and then 3 times per day each, it can cast Lightning Bolt, Thunderstep, and Major Image. So this spell list kind of reflects the actual vibe of the creature, how it's going to be trying to, use Hallucinatory Terrain to show exactly what's going to happen in the next stage, or potentially with the Stormsinger. And it's going to use Calm Emotions most of the time, but they start trying to attack it just to get the people to actually listen and stuff. But it also has Shocking Grasp, where if it needs to kind of remind you of what you're doing. But for its bonus actions, it has 2 options. So the first option is called Bolt Form, which has a recharge of 4 to 6. With Bolt Form, the Storm Herald can transform into a streak of living lightning until the end of its next turn. In this form, it's under the effects of the Gaseous Form spell. However, it gains a flying speed of 80 feet instead. While in bolt form, it leaves behind sparks and static charges, and any creature it passes through must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or take 1d8 lightning damage once per turn. Its next bonus action it has access to is called Cunning Action, which once again is on a recharge of 4 to 6. With Cunning Action, the Storm Herald can take the dash, disengage, or hide action as a bonus action. I did that just because it already has a super high movement speed, and I feel like it would be kind of annoying as a creature for it to be able to just, especially if it's in its bolt form and everything. I don't want it to just be able to just move that's like 160 feet if it's in its 80 feet movement for its bolt form and stuff. That's like 160 times 2, like 320 movement speed on a single turn. That's a lot, and it can already move 80 feet with a dash. So I didn't want to make it just so it could spam it the entire time, but this is a nimble sort of I guess not combatant, since most of the time it's gonna be fighting you to try to get away or just defend itself and not be killed and stuff. But this creature is going to be very hard to hit and pin down, but it's not a tank, which is kind of reflected with its low hit points and stuff. Next up, we're going to go over a special thing that each of these 3 creatures have. So each creature within the storm cycle has regional effects, which I thought would be a pretty cool thing for the environmental storytelling that this creature actually is supposed to be. So the region surrounding a Storm Herald's area of interest is warped by the creature's mystical nature, creating any of the following effects. The first effect is open flames of a non-magical nature are extinguished within 5 miles of the area of interest. Torches and campfires refuse to burn, but closed lanterns are unaffected. I copied this from the Unicorn's regional effects, as I feel like that kind of makes sense for a Feywild kind of protector of nature, that it's not going to let you burn things within the area of interest and stuff. The next option is all non-animal / humanoid creatures within 5 miles of the area of interest and notice their hair is strangely standing on end. Creatures wearing or in contact with metal take 1 non-lethal lightning damage once per long rest at a random time as the latent sparks in the air zap unsuspecting victims. This one is pretty self-explanatory, is that it kind of is comedic a little bit. Everybody, you can imagine the party waking up while within this, let's just say it's within the town that the Storm Herald is trying to warn and stuff. Everybody wakes up and their hair is standing directly straight up and everything. I think that'll be a really fun, it also is an indicator that something is going on, but it's a whimsical sort of thing, which I think fits with the Feywild aesthetic. And the last option for its regional effects is a light drizzle constantly falls within 5 miles of the area of interest. At the beginning of each day, roll a 1d100. On a 75 or higher, thunderstorms begin in the area, imposing disadvantage on perception checks while outdoors due to the heavy rain and loud thunder. This one is pretty self-explanatory. It's a storm being, or is connected to a storm being, so if it's within the area, a storm might happen and stuff. Now that we've gone over the Storm Herald, let's go over the next stage of what happens when you don't heed the Storm Herald's warning, which is going to be the appearance of a creature known as the Howlers.
I didn't think much of it at first. Just some weird noises in the woods. Laughing, screeching, like monkeys on fire or something. The lad said it was just an echo in the cliffs. Maybe a prank from the locals. But then our gear started disappearing. Not stolen, just moved. Replaced with rocks or whatever the like. Our bedrolls were stuffed with acorns. Someone poured honey into the blister cranks. It was funny at first, until it wasn't. That night I saw one. Skinny thing. Looked kinda like a monkey. Arms like cords and fur that sparked with some rainbow energy stuff. But its face... Gods help me, it had human teeth. Big gleaming set of them too. It smiled at me and just howled. It had this awful shrieking sound like laughter and rage all jumbled in a mess. Then more came out the bushes. 6, maybe 7 of them. Leaping from tree to tree, howling like they were drunk on ale. We tried to fight it, but they were fast. Too fast. They'd zap you, trip you, scream in your face, and vanish quicker than you can see. I told the captain we should leave, that this land didn't want us here. He didn't listen. When he finally struck one down, things changed. All their fur turned red, glowing like a fire. They stood up taller than any man there, teeth still smiling, but they weren't joking anymore. We didn't win that fight. We just ran. And I don't think they chased us, they just let us go.
So getting into what a Howler is, the Howlers are a mischievous and unpredictable species of Fae that serve as a part of the 2 warning system before the appearance of the Stormsinger. They are the second wave of judgment, following the Storm Herald's diplomatic approach. Howlers represent the unpredictable nature of the Feywild, where joy and chaos reign hand in hand. Howlers are thought to have originated from the deepest, most chaotic regions of the Feywild. As creatures born of disorder and trickery, they thrive in creating environments where tension and frustration are common. They take immense delight in playing tricks, inciting minor disruptions, obnoxious pranks, and causing mental strain. Howlers are odd creatures to behold. Howlers closely resemble chimpanzees in build, standing at around 4 feet tall with lanky limbs and exaggerated human-like features. Their appearance is extremely unnerving and alien. Their metallic dark blue fur constantly crackles with chromatic lightning, and their pearly white teeth create an uncanny visage. This unsettling look is further emphasized by their human-like hands. They are most often found in packs, anywhere between 6 to 12 individuals. This mob mentality allows them to coordinate their pranks and tricks in unpredictable ways. They use their agility to move quickly across terrain, constantly harassing their targets. Their communications are loud and boisterous, often marked by high-pitched howls that are both disorienting and irritating to anyone nearby. Howlers are more than just pranksters. They are highly attuned to their surroundings. They act like pests, constantly annoying those who find themselves nearby. Their behavior often feels invasive and relentless, which is exactly what they're designed to do. If the offending party doesn't leave or change their ways, the Howler's pranks increase immensely. At first, Howlers appear as small, pesky creatures causing minor irritations. However, if the Storm Herald was harmed or killed during the previous stage, or if a Howler is seriously hurt, the Howlers enter an enraged state. This state is referred to as the Red Howler form. In this form, they grow in size, becoming more muscular and dangerous. Their fur, along with the lightning they produce, turns bright red. Their once harmless pranks turn into violent outbursts. The transition into this form represents the point of no return, and the offending party has crossed the threshold. So these are the, quote unquote, like trickster type Fae and everything. That's a common sort of theme with Fae and stuff. But these are tricksters that have a little bit of a treat with that trick. If you catch my drift and everything. If you do attack these things and try to lethally take them out and everything, then things are going to start getting pretty bad. But they're the Howlers. Well, according to their namesake and everything, they howl and do this hooting sort of sound and everything that grates against people's minds and stuff. Kind of like when people scrape their fingers along a chalkboard. That's pretty much what this Howler's howl sounds like and everything. But their whole goal is, so you weren't able to be convinced by diplomacy to leave the area, so now there's gonna annoy the ever-loving shit out of you until you leave, basically. And if you don't leave, then things might start getting bad for you. And let's just say you violently retaliate, and then things are gonna be really bad for you, especially if you get to the third stage after that. But before we get to that and everything, we're gonna go ahead and get into the combat abilities for the Howler. So, looking at the Howler Statblock, the Howler is a small Fae, chaotic neutral, kind of a little bit more on the axis of being a little bit wilder than the Storm Herald. It has an AC of 18, which is due to its elusive nature trait. It has 33 hit points with a roll of 5d6 plus 15. It has 40-foot walking speed and then a climb speed of 50 feet. For its stats, it has 14 strength, 18 dexterity, 16 constitution, 6 intelligence, 18 wisdom, and 11 charisma. It has proficiency in strength, dexterity, and wisdom saving throws. It has a +5 to strength saving throws, a +7 to dexterity saving throws, and a +7 to wisdom saving throws. For its skills, it has +5 to athletics, +7 to perception, and then +7 to stealth. It has resistance to thunder damage, and then immunity to lightning damage, and it also has a condition immunity to stun. It has passive perception of 17, and it can speak and understand Sylvan, but it only understands Common. So when someone's trying to speak to it and stuff like that, it can't necessarily speak to you. Not that it really will, but even if it wanted to speak to you, it couldn't. It can only understand Common. For its traits, its first trait is called Chromatic Fur. The metallic fur of a Howler constantly sparks with chromatic lightning. A Howler emits bright light in a 5-foot radius and dim light for an additional 5 feet. At the end of a creature's turn, or the start of its turn within 5 feet of a Howler, it must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, or be blinded until the start of its next turn. A creature that succeeds gains advantage on saving throws against its effect for the next hour. Its next trait is called Evasive Nature. Howlers add their Wisdom modifier to their armor class. It also has Pack Tactics, which is pretty self-explanatory if you know what that is. If one of its allies are within 5 feet, it gets advantage in the attack roll. It has Magic Resistance, which kind of plays towards its Fae mysticism and stuff. It has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. It also has a trait called Conductive Fur. If the Howler takes lightning damage, it regains hit points equal to half the lightning damage taken once per turn. It also has the trademark feature called Red Howler. So when a Howler becomes bloodied, which is at or below 50% hit points, or manifests after the death of a Storm Herald, it undergoes the following changes. It grows to medium size, it gains 1d10 plus 4 temporary hit points. It can dash, dodge, or disengage as a bonus action. It gains 2 additional uses of its stunning touch, which will be detailed later, and it upgrades the damage die of its attacks by 1 step, which I included in the attacks. For the actions that the Howlers have access to, Howlers have multi-attack, so they can use their stunning touch and then make 2 attacks, choosing from its slam or lightning bolt in any combination that you want. Its slam attack has a plus 7 to hit with a reach of 5 feet, and it has 2 options to pick from when it's making a slam attack. The first one is called Bash, so a Bash does 1d8 plus 2 bludgeoning damage, and in its red Howler form it does 1d10 plus 2 bludgeoning damage. For its second option, it has an option called Trip, so this one does less damage, doing 1d6 plus 2 bludgeoning damage, but on a hit, medium or smaller sized creatures are not prone. In its red Howler form, it turns to 1d8 plus 2 bludgeoning damage. Its next attack is called Lightning Bolt, which is a ranged weapon attack. So it has a plus 7 to hit as well, and it has a reach of 60 to 120 feet. And if you're not familiar with how range works in 5e, so 60 is its regular range. So anywhere within 60 feet of a Howler can make that attack roll as regular. But anything beyond 60 feet up to 120 feet maximum, that's disadvantage on the attack roll. So this just gives it a ranged option and everything. But yeah, it's one target, and on a hit, it does 1d12 plus 4 lightning damage plus 1d6 thunder damage. On a hit, the lightning bolt can travel to one other target within 10 feet of the original target, using the same attack roll against their AC. In its red Howler form, this increases the 2d6 plus 4 lightning damage, plus 1d8 thunder damage. For its next action, it's called Stunning Touch, which can do once per day, or unless it's in its red Howler form, then I think it gains, 2 additional uses, I think? Yeah, 2 additional uses. So that becomes 3 times per day when it's in its red Howler form. But Stunning Touch, the Howler places a hand on a creature within 5 feet, transmitting a surge of magical electricity. The target creature must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw. On a failure, the target is paralyzed until the end of their next turn. On a successful saving throw, the target only halves their movement speed until the end of their next turn. So this might not seem that bad at first. I mean, it's paralyzed, so I'm pretty sure it is pretty bad. But I can just imagine, let's just say your barbarian is feeling super confident, just going to murder hobo their way through everything like they usually do. They run up in this group full of Howlers, and they all run up and put their hands on him and stuff. Even if he succeeds once, let's just say there's 5 Howlers. That's 5 con saves he has to succeed, potentially to not be paralyzed. And if he is paralyzed after that, things are really bad because that counts as critical hits when you get hit within 5 feet with a melee attack when you're paralyzed. So that could easily turn into a very deadly situation. Its next action is called Chromatic Bolt, which has a recharge of 5 to 6. The Howler fires a beam of chromatic lightning at a creature within 60 feet. The target creature must make a DC 15 Charisma saving throw. On a failure, the affected creature is teleported up to 30 feet away in a location of the Howler's choice. On a success, the affected creature is only teleported up to 10 feet away. In its red Howler state, it deals 2d10 lightning damage to the target on a failed save and half on a success, so it becomes an actual damaging effect. It is a trickster, so I would say don't just teleport them off of the cliff unless that's the type of game that you're running as a DM. You know, it's up to you and everything, but that would be kind of brutal. This thing is kind of meant to be more disruptive than it is just, I'm going to teleport you to the top of this cliffside right here that we're standing near and stuff. That's another thing. Don't have these fights next to a cliffside once you know these things can teleport you and stuff. If it isn't, I feel like if it's in its red Howler state, that's kind of believable why it would teleport you off a cliff, but that's besides the point. I won't go too far away with it. It has one bonus action option, and its bonus action is called Maddening Howl. The Howler chooses one creature that can hear it, and it can see within 30 feet. So you have to be able to hear what it can, its voice and everything, and that it also has to be able to see within 30 feet of it. So for the next minute, the target has disadvantage on concentration checks while within 30 feet of that specific Howler. Additionally, the target creature cannot concentrate on spells with a verbal component while within 30 feet of that Howler. A creature cannot be affected by multiple maddening howls at once. This is just to prevent it from the entire pack, just focusing in on the one wizard and everything. Yeah, I mean, it has to be able to see you for the effect to be able to maintain and stuff, and you have to be within, a certain range for that to actually work. Kind of think about it how, I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but when I'll be typing something and somebody's like talking to me like really loudly or stuff, and I end up typing out what they're saying, that's essentially what this maddening howl is that it's just so annoying that it's hard for you to actually concentrate on like intricate sort of things that you need to say and stuff. But I thought that would be an interesting sort of mechanic to play towards this kind of it's maddening howl, so it's like literally trying to drive you crazy with annoyance and stuff. So I think that would be a very flavorful sort of feature. Getting into its regional effects, the region surrounding a Howler's area of interest is warped by the creature's mystical nature, creating any of the following effects. The first option is all non-animal/humanoid creatures within 5 miles of the area of interest cannot benefit from a short rest. Constant annoyances such as acorns being thrown from hidden areas, rocks being placed in walkways, and equipment being sabotaged make it hard to relax. The second option is all non-animal/humanoid creatures within 5 miles of the area of interest find it hard to mentally focus. This imposes a -1d4 penalty on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma checks, as they constantly feel an uneasy irritation. And the last one is the same as the Storm Heralds, but the percentage chance is kind of increased a little bit. A light drizzle constantly falls within 5 miles of the area of interest. At the beginning of each day, roll a 1d100. On a 65 or higher, thunderstorms begin in the area, imposing disadvantage on perception checks while outdoors due to the heavy rain and loud thunder. So it's just a slightly higher chance of it starting to have a thunderstorm outside while the Howler is in the area. But yeah, no, this Howler is meant to be a disruptive sort of creature, and this I imagine that like I said, I don't have CR for my creatures anymore. I just feel like it's kind of unnecessary. But yeah, no, a pack of these 6 to 12 of them, if it's like 12 of them, I imagine that it would actually be a significant challenge for like a mid-tier party and everything. And I think it would be a moderate challenge for a higher tier party, as they definitely don't have enough hit points to just kind of like 1v1 like a level 10 plus party, but they would still be fairly annoying, especially with its like various features that they have and stuff. But yeah, these creatures are meant to be an annoyance, just based off of the mechanical and lore design and everything. But what's not going to be an annoyance is when these things turn red Howler, and if they do turn red Howler, or you potentially just don't leave when after a couple of days when these things are harassing you, then the third stage comes with the Stormsinger.
I felt it before I saw it. The air felt weird, like the forest was holding its breath. The wind died and everything just stopped. No birds, bugs, no sound. My dog was losing his mind. Then came the drums. Not regular drums. These weren't the drums of men. It was like the earth was being struck. You know what I mean? The sky split open. There was thunder, but no lightning. Rain without clouds. And then I saw it. The thing was a titan. This gorilla with fur that looked like clouds, and it shimmered with these golden sparks. The thing was dancing, but every step it took shattered trees. It wore this golden mask, the kind you see in ruins or something. And it sang. Not a song with words. It felt older than that. Ancient. The kind of sound that crawls into your chest and makes you feel small. The last thing I heard before my eardrums exploded was everybody screaming. Some people just dropped where they stood. Couldn't take it. We tried to run, but the wind wouldn't let us. We tried to hide, but all the buildings gave way. The thing wasn't angry or anything. It's not like it was hunting us. It was just dancing. And that was all it took.
Rumored to be born in the heart of the first thundercloud that ever formed, the Stormsinger is the embodiment of the Feywild's will, unleashed only when all pleas, omens, and warnings are ignored. Some claim that the sound of thunder itself is the echo of the Stormsinger beating its chest like a divine drum. When the sacred groves are burned, ancient pacts shattered, or the cries of the Fey go unheard, the Stormsinger is called. It is the manifestation of elemental fury, a dancer of thunder and lightning whose presence rewrites the world. The Stormsinger stands at nearly 17 feet tall, a titan with silver fur that flows like clouds. It has the body of a great ape and the presence of a god. Golden lightning dances across its fur, glowing with every breath and movement. Its face is hidden behind an ornate golden mask, which is sculpted with angular, expressionless features. Behind its hollow eyes, lightning pulses. Despite its massive frame, the Stormsinger moves with extreme elegance, every motion part of an eternal, fluid dance. The Stormsinger does not speak, it sings. It sings with a voice so thunderous that entire forests can be flattened under its song. This ancient chant, which is incomprehensible to all but the oldest Fae, predates mortal language. It is said to be the rhythm of the world's first storm, a song sung once more only when the balance has been broken beyond repair. Scholars claim the sound of thunder itself is the echo of its drumming chest. Common mortals caught nearby during its song are not fought, they are simply torn asunder by the resonance of its voice. It shows no inherent malice, it doesn't seek vengeance or conquest. It delivers judgment through its divine dance, a dance which it does for eternity. It does not pursue individuals or give chase. Instead, it performs its cataclysmic dance until balance is restored, and all is leveled. It is immune to reason, fear, or appeal. To the Fae, it is revered and feared as a sacred law. To mortals, it is the apocalypse made manifest. Once its performance ends, the Stormsinger vanishes, leaving behind silence, sparks, and legends passed down through fearful whispers. But yeah, no, once the Stormsinger shows up, the time for talk is over. You're either going to leave this area in fear, or you're going to die. Or both. But either way, you're going to leave somewhere. But yeah, no, the Stormsinger, I kind of got this inspiration from like various mythologies of like these dancing sort of gods and everything that show up as like natural forces and stuff. But yeah, no, the Stormsinger is just this dancing sort of Fae deity and stuff that just lays waste to the area that is, you know, the offending party and stuff like that. And yeah, it just operates as this pure raw like force of nature that you can't reason with or stop and everything. So this is the type of creature that shows up at like the end of a campaign, or like, you know, as the final stage for the, you know, whatever sort of boss interaction you have set up and stuff. But we're gonna go ahead and get straight into the combat abilities of the Stormsinger. Getting into its stat block, the Stormsinger is a huge Fae, chaotic neutral. It has an AC of 18 because it has the evasive nature trait as well. It has 330 hit points with a calculation of 20d12 plus 200. It has 60 feet movement for its movement speed. And for its stats, it has 24 strength, 14 dexterity, 30 constitution, 14 intelligence, 23 wisdom, and then 20 charisma. For its saving throws, it has plus 13 to strength saves, plus 8 to dexterity saves, and then plus 12 to wisdom saves. It has plus 13 to athletics checks, and then plus 12 to perception checks. For its resistances, it has resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, and it has immunity to lightning and thunder damage. It also has immunity to the charmed, frightened, and stunned conditions. And for its senses, it has dark vision of 120 feet, true sight is 60 feet, and then passive perception of 22. For its languages, just like the Howler, it speaks Sylvan, but it only understands Common. I mean, it's not going to be talking to you anyway. I mean, you're not going to be able to hear it when it's nearby and stuff. But if you somehow survive and get nearby the Stormsinger, it's still not going to be speaking to you in your mortal sort of language and everything. But without spending too much time, let's get straight into its traits. For its traits, the first one it has evasive nature, which is the same as the Howler. So the Stormsinger adds its wisdom modifier to its AC, which is included in the calculation for it. That's what makes it 18. It also has magic resistance, giving it advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. And for the first original sort of feature for it, it's called Dancing Storm. So the Stormsinger can choose to teleport when it uses its movement. So this is just, let's say it uses 30 feet of movement to move 30 feet somewhere else. It can choose to make that movement teleportation, as you can kind of flavor effect that each step that it takes is like accompanied by the boom of thunder, and then you blink and it appears somewhere else. It also has a trait called Magic Weapons, so the Stormsinger's attacks are magical. And another trait it has is called Drums of Destruction. At the end of each of the Stormsinger's turns, each creature in the 30-foot emanation originating from the Stormsinger takes 44 thunder damage and becomes deafened while within the emanation. Concentration checks are made at disadvantage while within the area. This effect can be negated by the silent spell being casted on the Stormsinger. This is just to emphasize the fact that this is a literal storm deity that sings with a voice that destroys everything around it, and it's beating its chest, sends out these thunderous sonic booms and stuff. So it's so much noise that there's no chance of you potentially hearing while within a certain distance from it and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought that was really flavorful sort of feature and stuff. But its next feature is called Siege Monster. So the Stormsinger deals double damage to objects and structures. And its next feature is called Storm God. So I copied this feature from a creature called the Elder Tempest. I think it's from Mordecai's Tome of Foes. It's like this wind sort of god or something like that. But yeah, so the Stormsinger is always at the center of a thunderstorm 1 mile in diameter. Heavy rain falls in the area, causing the area to be lightly obscured. Heavy rain also extinguishes open non-magical flames and imposes disadvantage on perception checks that rely on hearing. In addition, strong winds swirl in the area, covered by the storm. The winds impose disadvantage on ranged attack rolls, and the winds extinguish open flames and disperse fog. So this is the sort of thing where you're going to know that Stormsinger is approaching well before that it gets there, especially with its regional effects on this feature right here. So you're literally fighting a personified storm. So I thought that was a really cool feature I wanted to add to this. Next up, it has legendary resistance, which it can do 3 times per day. That's pretty self-explanatory. If it fails a saving throw, it can choose to succeed. It also has a feature called Mystical Restoration. So I kind of got the inspiration from like various fiends and how they work and stuff, but If the Stormsinger dies outside of the Feywild, its body disappears into rain and sparks, and it gains a new body after 1d10 days, reviving with all its hit points somewhere in the Feywild. So you're probably going to want to fight this thing in the Feywild, because if you kill it, you just made an enemy of a literal living hurricane. So, you know, good luck with that. But I thought that would, I think this gives it that sort of mythical, almost immortal feel to this godlike entity. Next up, it has innate spellcasting. So its spellcasting list isn't nearly as huge, but you're going to see why in a second. It has a spell save DC of 18 with a plus 12 to hit with spell attacks. Its spellcasting ability is Wisdom, just like with all the others. So 3 times per day each, it can cast Wrath of Nature, Chain Lightning, and then Power Word Stun. And then once per day each, it can cast Whirlwind and then Power Word Kill. So that's pretty self-explanatory in how bad things it can get. It can either summon these like storm sort of spells or use its literal sort of mythical voice, this ancient sort of primordial language that it's using to just instantly end you and stuff. So I think that's a very flavorful sort of feature and stuff. And this is a boss monster, so by the time you're fighting this thing, things with Power Word Kill are not going to be the they're going to be the least of your worries, essentially, even though it's Power Word Kill, so that's pretty bad. But without holding up too much time, let's get into the actions that it has availability to. So it does have multi-attack, and it can make 2 attacks picking between its Stormcloud Whip or its Smash. And yeah, you heard me right, it has a whip made of storm clouds. So you can kind of flavor effect this as it literally has dominion over the storm clouds that surround the area. So you can like flavor effect it that it's waving its hands around the air, and then you see a giant thundercloud full of lightning start to spark and form into a line that is congealed into this thing's hand, turning into a whip made of literal storm, like black storm clouds and lightning. But yeah, it has a storm whip attack, which has a plus 13 to hit. So it has 2 options to pick from when it's making a storm whip attack. The first option is called Sweep, so all targets within a 15-foot cone it makes this attack roll against. I will probably just roll 1 just to make it more balanced, as it's not making an attack roll for each individual person there. But yeah, so it makes an attack against all people within a 15-foot cone, and it does 2d8 plus 7 lightning damage on a hit, plus 1d12 thunder damage. On a hit, a 10-foot radius black storm cloud is created in the space of the target creature. This storm cloud counts as heavily obscured and remains in the area for up to 1 minute or until dispersed. This storm cloud is immune to the heavy winds generated by the Stormsinger, and there can be a number of black storm clouds equal to the Stormsinger's Wisdom modifier, which is 6. So you can kind of just imagine every time it strikes somebody with this whip, this black storm cloud is kind of congealing around the person and everything and kind of forming within the space. I think that's a very flavorful effect. As if it hits a whole bunch of people in like these successful amount of turns, depending on where you are, the entire like terrain might be filled with these storm clouds and stuff. Its second option is called Wrangle, which has a reach of 30 feet, and it's 1 target, but it has a longer range. So it does 3d8 plus 7 lightning damage on a hit, plus 3d6 thunder damage. On a hit, larger, smaller sized creatures is pulled 15 feet towards the Stormsinger, and on a hit with a d20 roll of 18 or higher, the creature is also paralyzed until the beginning of their next turn. So I was thinking about giving it like an increased critical threat range, but I think it makes more sense that if you're getting a literal whip made out of storm clouds and primordial lightning wrapped around you, there's a chance you could get stunned by it, which is going to be a very bad deal if it pulls you close enough to it to be able to hit you with its smash attack. And speaking of its smash attack has a plus 13 to hit, as a reach of 5 feet, and it does 2d6 plus 7 bludgeoning damage on a hit, plus 1d6 force damage. And on a hit, large or small sized creatures with a strength score of 17 or lower are knocked back 30 feet. On a critical hit, the target is also knocked prone. If the creature collides with an object or structure, they take falling damage equal to the distance knocked back. If the affected creature collides with another creature, the secondary creature must make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw or take the same amount of falling damage on a failed save, taking no damage on a success. Its last action it has access to is called Summon Howlers, which it can do once per day. The Stormsinger summons up to 5 red Howlers and loses 18 hit points for each Howler it summons. Summon Howlers have maximum hit points, appear within 100 feet of the Stormsinger, and disappear if the Stormsinger is reduced to 0 hit points. So you remember how strong the red Howlers get. There's going to be 5 of them that it can potentially summon, so it does have to spend health for it, but I do think it makes up for the health it has to spend for the action economy of like having all those red Howlers kind of either giving you disadvantage on concentration checks or kind of just disrupting you, diverting your attention away from this storm deity. It has 2 bonus actions it has availability for, and its bonus actions are Chance of Light, which is a recharge of 4 to 6. Sparks of lightning flash colors beyond description. All creatures within a black storm cloud must make a DC 18 charisma saving throw. On a failure, the creature is blinded from the primal colors of the Feywild until the end of their next turn. Creatures suffer no effects on a successful saving throw. The Stormsinger is unable to perform this while affected by the silent spell. I don't know if I said that the silent spell also deactivates the Drums of Destruction feature that it has, but its next bonus action is called Chance of Might, which has a recharge of 4 to 6 as well. Volatile sparks assault victims from all directions. All creatures within a black storm cloud must make a DC 18 Constitution saving throw. On a failure, affected creatures become shocked. While shocked, the creature takes 2d4 lightning damage at the beginning of their turns and suffers a minus 1d4 penalty to dexterity-based attack rolls, skill checks, and saving throws. This lasts for 1 minute or until a creature uses an action to attempt a DC 18 Constitution saving throw to end it. You can kind of flavor fact that these magical sort of sparks and lightning are literally going down to the person's very nerves and everything and making it hard for you to move without twitching and everything. But this offers some synergy for the Storm Cloud ability that the sweep attack has for the Storm Whip. So you can kind of flavor effect that when it makes this sweeping sort of cone attack and everything, it has less range than the 30 feet length of the Storm Whip, but let's just say it's like coiling it together into this like congealed mass of storm clouds. When it sweeps out the Storm Whip, it smacks everybody and leaves the storm clouds in the area, and then it uses its bonus action to do one of these chants and everything. But yeah, I tried to give this creature a sort of like counter with the silent spell and everything, and if you have some sort of way to gain resistance to lightning damage, then that'll be very helpful for this this sort of creature and everything. But yeah, no, I think definitely a big deal. It has like this sort of magical sort of skirmisher vibe to it, and I want to re-emphasize that it can teleport when it uses this movement. So this thing is kind of like, imagine if like a Balrog was like a more mystical sort of thing. That's the actual inspiration I got for the Storm Whip attack. Is I think the Balrog or the Balor in 5e is a really cool creature and stuff. So that's my version of how a Storm Whip sort of thing would go there. But you know, this teleporting sort of brawler that this thing is going to be very disruptive to fight against. But speaking of disruptive, let's go ahead and get into its regional effects. Before we get into the regional effects of the Stormsinger, let's go over its legendary actions real quick. It has 3 legendary actions, which, just like with all monsters, they refresh at the beginning of its turn and stuff. So the options that it has, for 1 legendary action, it can use Whip Crack, and Whip Crack lets it make a Storm Whip attack, which basically is going to be its Wrangle attack more specifically and stuff. For 2 legendary actions, it can use Dancing Thunder, and Dancing Thunder lets the Stormsinger cast Thunder Step as a 4th level spell. And on a failed saving throw, targets are also knocked back 15 feet, in addition to the actual effects of failing the Thunder Step spell and everything. Its next legendary action costs 3 legendary actions, which is called Awe-Inspiring Song. The Stormsinger begins to sing louder. Until the start of its next turn, all creatures within 60 feet of it that can hear it must succeed on a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw or become frightened until the end of their next turn. Its next option is called Cataclysmic Surge, which costs 3 legendary actions. The Stormsinger gathers Hurricane Winds into its whip. All of the Stormsinger's weapon attacks deal force damage until the end of its next turn. So let's just say that one of the party members has some way to gain resistance to lightning damage. I don't really know any way that off the top of my head that they would be able to, so let's just say it's a potion. As a DM, you can really surprise your players who are really confident in fighting this thing when you describe that it gathers these massive hurricanes around it. It starts spinning in a circle above its head, and it starts lowering down over top of its body and everything, and then making the whip that is in its hands even bigger than before, and that you can communicate to the party that now it's dealing a force damage, like it's dealing actual concussive force just from the amount of hurricane winds and sound that's congealed into its whip and everything. So that lets it bypass those resistances and everything with doing force damage, and I think that gives it its godly sort of vibe and stuff. But like I was just saying before, I don't want to take up too much time and stuff, so we're going to go ahead and get straight into the regional effects. For its regional effects, the region surrounding a Stormsinger is warped by the creature's mystical nature for up to 5 miles, creating any of the following effects. The first one is all beasts, livestock, and common animals in the area with an intelligence score of 4 or lower become frantic beyond control. These creatures will attempt to leave the region at all costs, attacking any obstacle in a frenzy. Kind of like one of those like biblical sort of end times sort of omens and everything. You see all the beasts in the area are just trying to like get the fuck, and it, you know, if you try to stop it, this thing will bite you and just fight with a frantic sort of ferocity to try to get out of there. The second option is the faint sound of a Stormsinger's ominous song causes creeping anxiety in all non-animal/humanoid creatures in the area. All non-animal/humanoid creatures in the area must make a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw for each hour spent in the area. On a failed saving throw, affected creatures gain 1 rank of exhaustion, up to a maximum of 5 ranks of exhaustion. Kind of think about it how that sense of dread you feel when you know a natural disaster is about to happen in your area. Just imagine that like dialed up by times 10, and then you hear this sort of song that's associated with it and everything. So a mortal creature is just really hard for it not to immediately just fall to the ground and just exhaustion from the pure presence of this creature and everything. So it's not going to kill you, but there's 5 ranks of exhaustion, so it's going to be pretty rough either way. And that kind of gives the party incentive to kind of like take care of the Stormsinger when it's nearby and everything. You can't really just leave it, because then the entire town is going to be dead in a couple hours. Just because of the fact that they can't move, I think, after like 5 ranks of exhaustion, right? Or something like that. But its last regional effect is cataclysmic thunderstorms buffet the land within the area, imposing disadvantage on perception checks while outdoors due to the heavy rain and loud thunder. All structures in the area take 2d10 thunder damage for every 2 hours in the area. So this thing is made to lay waste to an area and stuff like that. So it just doing this dance and causing these like nature events around it, destroying entire towns nearby and stuff. So without further ado, I know I've been going over the stat blocks for a little while, so I won't take up too much time. We're going to go ahead and get into how you can use this creature in your game. So as far as how you can use this creature in your game, the Stormsinger is literally tailor-made to be a side quest or potentially the main impending threat in a Feywild or like nature-themed game that you're running. If you're not using the Feywild in your setting, you could always make the Stormsinger like a nature god or a storm god in your pantheon, whatever you want to do. It could also just be the manifestation of nature's wrath, just a personified version of it, but I tried to make the lore vague enough to let people put their own spin on it. Off the top of my head though, I think one interesting aspect of the Stormsinger is how druid circles or like rangers or archfey view the Stormsinger. I can imagine some of the most fanatical druid circles trying to help the Stormsinger destroy the offending party, or potentially show up to warn people on their behalf as well. So anybody that knows anything about nature or is attuned to the natural world will know that something is wrong and will generally be called to action in some sort of way. So that makes a lot of different like factions that could potentially be interacting with the party in regards to the Stormsinger and stuff. But you don't necessarily need to use all 3 creatures as well. I do want to specify that. I mean, after all, if you're doing your own lore for it, you could just go wild and make a forest full of Howlers or something like that, or maybe a small village full of Storm Heralds that operate as like nomadic diplomats of nature. The storm cycle is 3 stages after all, and the 2 warnings don't have to have a set amount of time, so it just depends on how long you want to have it in your campaign. So you could definitely have interactions with the storm cycle at like varying levels. I'm just imagining you can interact with the Storm Herald at like level 3 and it gives the party the call to action for the campaign, but all that gets into the story stuff. And for story ideas is how you can use this. I came up with a pretty good one. I think you can kind of just make this a base template for if you want to use this for your campaign. So imagine if a village and or kingdom was built near an enchanted grove or a mystical forest area. This magical forest is the lifeblood of the village, providing plenty of food, water, and protection from the dangerous beasts and monsters in the world. The party, either from that village or just passing by, I'll probably make it, if this is the campaign, I would make it so they're from the village so they have a reason to care about the village being destroyed. But yeah, they could either be from that village or just passing by and notice that a portion of the forest is corrupted. Maybe at the beginning they're attacked by blights or like some sort of corrupted beast. And the village and or kingdom itself could be actually under attack from this corruption, completely unprepared for combat because of their peaceful history near this protected enchanted grove. And this corruption could be a multitude of things. One thing I'll use as an example is, let's say a special item like a plant or an ancient relic is the reason why the forest is magical and mystical and everything. Possibly it's even connected to the Feywild for this very reason. And then you have an evil faction like bandits, cultists, or this like greedy mages that have stolen this artifact, or maybe they're performing a dark ritual to corrupt it or the surrounding forest itself. And this causes the forest to wither. This is the point that the party probably meets the Storm Herald, who warns them about the issue and states how long they have until the final judgment comes, and that's dependent upon your campaign for the time frame of it. But the party can decide to head into the corrupted forest themselves to stop the villainous faction, and they could run into various corrupted flora and fauna along the way, and then also fight various members of this evil faction. How events play out after that is kind of up to what the players and the DM want to do in that scenario, so they'll also eventually run into Howlers as well, which will be an aggravating experience, but pretty fun for you as the DM to just fuck with the party and everything. And if the party takes too long to defeat the evil faction and restore the magic item or restore the forest, hurricanes start developing in the distance as the Stormsinger approaches. In my opinion though, I'd run a Stormsinger like how I would run a Tarask, which is basically just this force of nature that can't be stopped by like regular force and everything. You're not going to run up to this thing and just say, alright, I'm just going to hit it with my great axe and this is going to be the problem all over. Along with the fact that it has mystical restoration, that's not the type of vibe that this creature is best utilized for and everything. The bulk of a Stormsinger interaction in my mind is the party either trying to delay the Stormsinger long enough for the village to evacuate,
or helping the villagers escape the wrath of the Stormsinger and trying not to die in the process. Regardless, I think the Stormsinger isn't a problem you just stab to death, like I was saying. It's a problem that you try to avoid or think your way into succeeding. So these are just some ideas that I had. I won't hold y'all up too much. I know it's been a long video and stuff, but I hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content. And yeah, peace out.